we are streaming. So
Okay.
it should be going.
Refresh it. See if we can get the.
There we go.
The live stream.
And we're just going to refer to you as Chica, right?
Amazing. That's amazing.
What's amazing? We're gonna refer to you as amazing. What?
No. It's cool to go with just Chica. It's fine.
Cool.
Unless you have a preference or another name that you'd rather we use.
Yeah, sometimes we get people on that don't want their real name known. So have to...
I mean, everyone on the internet always says yes, Chica. That's fine.
Cool. So
just wait for
we have Ethan. Ethan Wilson says hi. Elijah says hello, my dudes and dudettes. Sonic Forces says what's up. Did Sonic Forces come out in 2017?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Maybe that's just when this person made their profile.
Maybe they were out before the game Sonic Forces.
Robert says, hey guys. Okay, so you guys are ready to start?
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect too many people to watch live since it's like midnight, but what time is it where you're at, Chica?
It's 6 o'clock in the morning here.
Oh wow.
But right. I'm an early loft wing, so
nice.
It's okay for me.
Nice. Okay, we have 11 people. Like that's good for midnight.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone.
Yeah. All right. So let me just. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hylian Gamescast, episode 95. We are also on iTunes and Spotify, so please go give us a review on iTunes, and we will give you a shout out and read your review live during our podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Jesse. I'm here with...
And I'm Daniel.
And our...
Took it away from you, Jesse.
Oh, no, you're fine. And our guest on this podcast is Chica. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for those who may not know who you are, Chica?
My name is Chica. I live in Sweden. I'm 28 years old, and I'm a huge Zelda fan, like since I was like little. Like literally my first memory, my first like childhood memory is like me in elementary school. Like I don't know why I'm telling this, but video games were like forbidden in that elementary school, and I had like this reputation that I knew how to get the big orange sword in Ocarina of Time, and everyone was just like, oh, she knows how to get the big orange sword, and people would like bring their cartridges to the school because video games were forbidden. People were like smuggling their Ocarina of Time cartridges to me, like knock at me like, shh, I heard you know about the big orange sword. Here, take my cartridge. And so yeah, I ended up getting the big orange sword for a couple of people. So since I am like 28 years old, I was like grew up with Nintendo 64 and Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. And yeah, I love Zelda. It's my favorite franchise and my favorite game.
That's such a great reputation to have.
Yeah, if you're going to be known for anything at school, it might as well be Zelda.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, and and I'm a patron supporter of 𝐵𝐺𝐸. I found 𝐵𝐺𝐸 through the Zelda tuber rabbit hole. You know, like the recommendation cycle. You start with, I don't know, you start with Commonwealth Realm, and then you go to like Celtic, and then you go to like Mass Nintendo Planet, and you go, and then I ended up here, and I was like, awesome. Oh, this is top 10s. I like top.
Yeah, we like when we all first started, like the original group of we went by the Chamber of Sages. That was like McIntyre, or the old McIntyre, Commonwealth Realm, HMK, and Zeltec, Zelda Master, and everyone. We all used to post very similar Zelda theories, and then we all kind of just went in different paths from there. I like doing the top 10s and videos on canceled games and stuff, and of course Zelda Master is known for his walkthroughs and stuff, and everyone is kind of known for their own little thing. But it was really cool. We all got to meet up for the first time at E3, and we all went and had dinner and hung out and stuff. It was really cool. Daniel was there too. I'm pointing over there, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But yeah, no, it was a really great time. But,
yeah,
no, that's the Zelda tuber rabbit hole is is a good way to put it. You start because that's even how I ended up here. Jeez, Mr. Zelda Informer. They posted a video which was Commonwealth and McIntyre, and then they have this whole network going, right? So you find one, and then it's like, okay, there's 10 more Zelda people. So I love it. Mm-hmm.
All right, so on today's podcast, we're going to be discussing an old interview from IGN with 𝐴𝐿NUMA and others at Nintendo about Breath of the Wild 2. We never actually covered the interview on the channel because when the news came out, we were actually at E3, and we focused on having fun more so than doing actual work. So I thought it would be nice to actually go through and cover the interview and discuss it, especially since it's a slow news week. And we have some comments from an indie developer about wanting to remake Zelda 2. So I thought it would be fun to go over that and then talk about which Zelda games that we would like to see remade. And of course, everyone that's watching, you can chat with us in the comments and let us know which Zelda games you would like to see released. So I guess we can go ahead and begin with the first piece of news. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
Alright, so this is from IGN. They say, full E3 Zelda interview, 𝐴𝐿NUMA on Breath of the Wild sequel and Link's Awakening remake. 𝐴𝐿NUMA comments on the Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel. This morning you surprised everybody with a big trailer in the direct, and we're all excited about that. I just played Link's Awakening and I want to talk to you a lot about that, but I have to ask about the trailer. Everybody's buzzing with excitement. It seemed like this was a dark twist on Breath of the Wild that reminded me of Majora's Mask. Was that on purpose? 𝐴𝐿NUMA replies, the new Breath of the Wild, or the sequel to it, it's not necessarily going to be related to Majora's Mask or inspired by it. It's just that it happened to be what we showed you currently is a little bit darker, and we're honestly still in production, so we can't really say exactly how it's going to be turning out. It continues, I know for a long time people have wanted to play as Zelda, and there have been some games where you get to play as Zelda a little bit. It looked like Zelda and Link were hanging out a lot together. Do you think this is going to be the game in which we get to play as Zelda, maybe as a co-op game? 𝐴𝐿NUMA replied, it's kind of interesting that you bring that up, because in Breath of the Wild, you see Zelda and Link together often too, so to go straight into the thought of co-op is very interesting to me. And then the Breath of the Wild segment ends with, one more about this, then we can talk about Link's Awakening. I was curious, Zelda and Link seem to be in a big underground cavern. Are we going to see something different with dungeons this time around? And 𝐴𝐿NUMA replies very vaguely, unfortunately, I can't speak of that right now. So, going by this, I know Daniel is familiar with it, but Chica, are you familiar with all of the comments from 𝐴𝐿NUMA about wanting to make a big multiplayer Zelda game?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
And then the
interview.
Yeah, and the new CEO or president of Nintendo also hinted at giving a big push for the online service and multiplayer games and everything, and it all kind of lines up with Breath of the Wild 2 possibly being multiplayer. So with that, since this is your first time on, Daniel and I, we've talked about it a few times before, but what type of multiplayer, or how would you see a form of multiplayer working for Breath of the Wild 2? They could have it...
I mean... I mean, I honestly have a hard time envisioning how it would work online. When I think about it, I think it's more like couch co-op, like the whole kind of as a Joy-Con to a friend, like maybe you're playing and you have Zelda as an companion of sorts, like in Spirit Tracks, and then you can pass over the Joy-Con to a friend, and the whole game goes like split screen, and then your friend can just like go away and do something else. And I mean, I mean that. I mean, the thing is that I think multiplayer Zelda has so much potential that it's not so much untapped potential. It's like multiplayer Zelda. It can still be a bit better. It's like Four Swords Adventures, Triforce Heroes. There's still something there that I think they can do something with, and that I think can turn out really, really good if they design like the alleged new dungeons that's gonna be in Breath of the Wild 2. If they design it so you can complete them like single player, but they will be like easier in multiplayer also. And we've seen, I mean, people always bring up Spirit Tracks, like we've seen Link and Zelda cooperate in a game before, and I really think they can evolve upon that. But when it comes to online, I think you can make it work too, in that. But I mean, I don't think Zelda could really work as like an MMO. You know, you have tons of people working around. It's more like you play. It's more like you play the game only two people. So you like find a friend online that can take control of Zelda, and then it could be exciting because you don't really know what the other person are up to at playing as Zelda and Slash or Link. But when I think about multiplayer in Breath of the Wild 2, I mostly think about couch co-op and making a spin and an evolved version of the Spirit Tracks cooperation elements that you can, pass your Joy-Con to a friend. Although it will be a problem with the buttons because you just use a lot of buttons in Zelda Breath of the Wild, and that would be a problem. But just the idea is appealing to me of just passing a Joy-Con to a friend and this game goes split screen.
Yeah. Daniel, do you have Sorry, I was going to ask you, Daniel, if you had a few ideas of how you would like to see multiplayer incorporated.
Yeah, the button thing would be a concern because I don't think a single Joy-Con has enough buttons, but I'm sure they could make something work. But
so really quick, since you mentioned the Joy-Cons, if they did do something to where it's like pass the Joy-Con to play with the friend or whatever, I could see them doing a thing to where they simplify the items to where instead of getting like a choice of having 3 different items, now you only have the choice of one item. Like you're playing A Link to the Past. You have the one button for a sword and one button for a boomerang or an arrow or whatever.
Right.
I could see them doing that. And then if you play with a traditional controller, instead of just getting the one item slot, you get 2 more item slots or something like that.
Yeah, and maybe the game just have a requirement for a Pro controller or a second pair of 2 Joy-Cons. Like they were just like, we can't really split it up like that. I guess that would work too.
Yeah, I mean that's at least how I would prefer it, to be honest, just because.
Yeah, absolutely.
The controls in Breath of the Wild are really refined and really good, and to see it that kind of stripped away would almost kind of be a bummer, you know, just because I feel like what they have is so good. But it would be really cool if you had to maybe do like a local wireless sort of co-op where you have 2 switches together. And,
that could work too.
Give us 𝐓𝐻𝐿𝐽𝐠.
Give us 𝐓𝐻𝐿𝐽𝐠.
Just
what we need.
It would be what are they called? I can't believe I forgot the name of them. The hopping jello things.
Choo-choos?
Yeah, the choo-choos. It'll be like Choo Link or something like that. Instead of 𝐓𝐻𝐿𝐽𝐠, it's Choo Choo Link.
But actually, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's glad you brought that up because
sounds so cute.
Segue is when we played like the Luigi's Mansion 3 demo with
When
Luigi.
you played.
Oh, sorry, Jesse.
I didn't get to play.
Jesse didn't get to play it, guys. But when the way they built that in, where you have to control Luigi and 𝐿𝐼𝐺𝐸 by like basically button push and just swap between which one you're controlling, felt really good. Actually, it was very, very easy to do that. So even just having the option of if you're playing single player and you can control the two of them and just swap between them, and when you're not using one of them, an AI just controls it to like do basic things, follow you around and participate in combat. They might just do it so that there's scripted segments, like in Majora's Mask with Cafe, where it's just a scripted scene that lets you play, like swap between the two characters or something. But it very well could be. It would be really cool to have a whole adventure where you have to manage having the two characters and having two characters' inventories and.
Yeah, exactly. You would have to like split up the weapons and stuff. You can like, not as Link and collect weapons and items and then give it over to Zelda. Maybe there are like some areas where Zelda can't go and some areas where Link can't go. Do you have to like manage and think about it? I think that could work too in a way.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if some players would just play as one character and make the other person basically like a glorified backpack, and just like give all their items to the other character. But no, I mean that would be really cool. I think the thing is that they have to make it in such a way where it's a good experience no matter which way you play it, whether you play it single player using only one character or single player swapping between the two characters or multiplayer. It has to still have a level of fun, because like with games like Four Swords or Triforce Heroes where you have a one player option, they're just not good with one player.
Yeah, but on the other hand,
multiplayer.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I think they pulled it off with Super Mario 3D World, because that game works. Game works great both ways. It's like it is a multiplayer party game, and people who played 4 players like, oh, this is so much fun. But then there are people who are like, oh, this is one of the best 3D Mario games, and they play it solo because the entire game is designed so it's fun both ways. And I would really actually trust the Zelda team to do the same with Breath of the Wild 2, to design it almost so. And it would be so much replay value, because you would have the entire game single player and the entire game multiplayer to have two almost completely different experiences in one game.
Yeah. No, and I agree.
What? So, sorry, Daniel, were you going to say something?
Oh, no. I was just... My biggest thing is the difference between games like Super Mario 3D World and even Triforce Heroes is that like a lot of the level design is very narrow, or like you're confined to a certain area. So even if there's multiple characters running around, it's not straining on the hardware because it's still contained in like a box, basically, right? With Breath of the Wild, you go anywhere. So I like more on the technical level. I worry like, are they gonna like almost restrict it so that you can't go too far apart from each other? Will they allow you?
Maybe they will. Maybe it will be restricted in the dungeons.
Maybe maybe they'll only let you do 2-player in dungeons or something, like if they have these dungeons. Who knows, right? So. Yeah, I mean, I assume they will. I really think they will, but yeah. But Jesse, sorry, you were gonna say.
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to my mind is whenever we talk about a multiplayer Zelda game, people talk about in the comments. They mention something like, "Oh, well, if it's like if they force multiplayer on you to where you're playing single player, and you have to do the Four Swords thing or Triforce Heroes thing where like you're just carrying around a second character basically, and it makes you do twice as much work." People complain and they're like, I don't want to have a game like that, it'll be boring and blah blah blah. And I'm thinking we've had that exact same thing ever since Ocarina of Time without the option of it being multiplayer, because even in Ocarina of Time in Jabu Jabu's belly, it forces you to do that same mechanic to where you're carrying Princess Ruto around and throwing her and using her as like a block to put on a switch. Again, and
Wind Waker does that too.
yeah, Wind Waker, it actually makes you take control of the other character in a similar way that Four Swords does. But instead of just pressing L, you have to take the time to play a song, and then you can move the character. And it would be 10 times better. No, it would be 1,000,000 times better if a second player could simply pick up the controller and play as that character instead of you having to play a song and play. That way you can run to your spot to where you need to be to use the mirror shield, and then she can run to her spot to where she needs to be to reflect it or whatever. So I think situations like that, like maybe people forget about them or they don't think of it as being tedious because it's only like in one dungeon or 2 dungeons throughout a game. And games like Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, I don't think they had them at all. But then again, in the DS, one of the DS games, you're also switching to like Phantom Zelda or whatever, so you can take control of the guards and stuff. And then in Breath of the Wild, I've always mentioned that for that game, the only thing that I can see that would have been multiplayer, because of course there was the Nintendo Direct when they revealed Breath of the Wild as Zelda Wii U. Aonuma mentioned that he didn't want you to think of it as a single player game, but of course playing it, it's completely a single player game. So the only way that I could think of where it would have been multiplayer is if a second player instead of the computer could have controlled Wolf-Link. That's the only situation in the game that I could think of that would give multiplayer. But there's also moments where you can run across another NPC that's like battling against a bokoblin or something, and you have to save them.
Yeah.
Maybe a second player could just take control of one of them. Maybe something like that's what they had planned, to where the second player is just a random NPC with a basic sword and shield or something that can kind of maybe help you. I don't know. But those are the only situations that I could think of in Breath of the Wild that would be. But of course in Breath of the Wild 2, they could just do what they've always done in past Zelda games and just give you the option to, like, here's a dungeon that is really fun to play as 2-player, but if you don't have 2 players and you just play by yourself, then it plays exactly the same as dungeons played before, to where you just switch between the characters and stuff. But Wind Waker did it really well, because the second player that you played as, whereas in Majora's Mask, it's just in the one little mini dungeon.
Very segmented.
Yeah. All you do is just like run around and step on the switch. But in Wind Waker, like, you actually got to control the different types of races, like the Rito and the Korok. Yeah, I almost said Koholint, but that's an island, not. Yeah, yeah.
But what's nice about Medley and Wind Waker is that they have different sort of abilities that than Link, right? Like they can both fly, at least limited distance, and that kind of thing.
She needs her skill from the dragon, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the story? She needs the skill so she can fly.
Whereas with Ruto in Ocarina of Time, it's just fun because you can throw her at enemies and.
That's what I'm thinking about. It being online, like maybe they don't want to do that because the trolling potential in Breath of the Wild 2 would be like unlimited. If they were to do it like online, like you can really mess with the other. Like if you still have the magnesis ability and you're supposed to cooperate, you can just toss a chest at Zelda and zap her just because you're having fun.
People would probably still do that, but if you're like couch co-op with your friend, that's probably less likely to happen. So.
Or
I don't know, maybe not. Depending on who you're playing with.
Okay, so if it does come out, I could see it possibly being 2 players. Mostly one person playing as Link and one person playing as Zelda, but I don't see it being like a 4-player co-op game. Like that would be great if they did. Actually, the best way they could do that is if they made special DLC that was able to play as 4-player, that gave like brand new dungeons that were similar in the way that Four Swords Adventures was, or Triforce Heroes, to where you needed 3 or 4 people to actually complete stuff. That way, people who don't want multiplayer, they don't have to buy it. Like, they can just play the single-player game. And for the people that would like to play like a 4-player dungeon, then they have the option to purchase it. That way. But then maybe they would complain about it being DLC and not with the, I don't know.
They'll find a way to complain either way.
Yeah.
So.
I've seen people complain that because Breath of the Wild 2 began as DLC for Breath of the Wild, they should have released it with the original DLC or had it in the game from the beginning. And I'm like, if they would have, like, Breath of the Wild wouldn't have released until like 2020 if they would have like
eventually.
Yeah, like if they would have like saved development so they could release all of it on one game, then like we would still be waiting for Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Probably.
And a lot of the stuff, sorry. I was going to say a lot of the stuff that they're putting into Breath of the Wild 2, they probably didn't even think about when they were making the original Breath of the Wild. Like, I would say a lot of new stuff that's coming to Breath of the Wild 2 is coming based off of feedback from Breath of the Wild.
So, I mean, they really listen to their fans.
Yeah.
They have a history of doing that a lot. And you know, like playable Zelda is like a big thing that fans not complain about, but the fans do talk about it a lot. And
yeah, there's even the mod.
I think they know that. Yeah, I seen the mod. It's crazy ambitious. It's very cool. But I actually had a dream once about Breath of the Wild 2 being multiplayer, and it sucked. But that
breaks my heart.
Yeah. It was surreal. It was like reconnecting the antenna. You had like a garden hose, and you had like 4 people with the garden hose. You're supposed to tie it. Yeah, it was awful, and people were really pissed.
Oh no.
Hopefully the Breath of the Wild 2 will not have a garden hose and will actually be very cool. But I have a lot of like faith in the developers. I mean, they really did a great job with Breath of the Wild, and I think they have like this confidence, like because Breath of the Wild did so good that they're really excited to work on Breath of the Wild 2, and I think they can afford to do like these kind of ideas like multiplayer and stuff, because I really think they could pull it off. And since they have experimented with co-op and done like stuff like they did in Spirit Tracks, I mean, I think they're definitely like thinking about it and considering it, and we'll see if it's turns out that way, which will be very exciting.
All right, Daniel, do you want to take the next news?
Sure, let's open this up here. So the next piece of news, so we've talked about this is more like more on that, what we've talked about in the past here. Many months ago, we talked about and we actually mentioned it earlier this week as well, the Inti Creates president previously mentioned that if he could work on a Zelda game, he would want to remake Zelda 2. We actually have an article from NintendoLife.com where he elaborates on what he was saying. So this is good because I was pretty intrigued by the remake Zelda 2 idea. So the article reads, a short time ago, Inti Creates boss 𝐓𝐼𝐧𝐬𝐢. I don't. I'm bad at Japanese names. Was asked in an interview if he could remake a game featuring a Nintendo character. His response caused quite a stir as he picked Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, the second title in the Zelda game series. Given that we've seen Cadence of Hyrule pretty recently, taking into account Metroid Samus Returns, a remake handled by an external team and a Western one at that, you might assume that such a comment could potentially lead to something happening, especially as Inti Creates has previously enjoyed a positive relationship with Nintendo. However, we recently had the chance to speak with him personally, and sadly, it would seem that his previous comment was merely wishful thinking. Firstly, he says, it wasn't so much that I wanted to make it from a business perspective. I was asked during an interview if I could make a game using a Nintendo character, what would I like to make? I really love The Legend of Zelda, so I answered that if I could make The Adventure of Link, I would be really happy. That story kind of blew up. Probably no thanks to us, Jesse. But it wasn't really something I was thinking about from a business perspective that I would like to make it. Simply that if I could make a game using Nintendo characters, that it would be The Adventure of Link. And I still think that, but our company and I don't really think it is realistic that we could make a game using Nintendo characters. But if after a long time such a miracle could happen, that would be really great. But we think it is unlikely. When asked if Zelda was the only series he would like to work on, he added, well, it is The Legend of Zelda that I really love, right from when it first came out on the Famicom Disk System. I don't think there are any Nintendo characters I'd like to work on other than that. Of course, Nintendo has loads of appealing characters and plenty that you could make a game with. It's really great. I sort of let it be known that I love Adventure of Link. There are plenty of other great games, but that is my favorite. So, I mean, this is kind of non-news, but also like kind of see that sort of revisited here. I guess Nintendo didn't approach him or anything after he said that, but it still would be really cool to see that remake happen, however much of a pipe dream it would be. But yeah, Jesse, do you have any thoughts to add?
I kind of just thought that this story would be a good way to kind of segue into discussing which Zelda game or which like older Nintendo game we would like to see be remade. So like something from the GameCube or Wii or Nintendo 64 era. So we can each go through and name off like one Zelda game that we would like to see remade next, and then one normal Nintendo game like Super Mario 64 or Sunshine or something that we would like to see brought to the Switch in HD. So starting with our guest, Chica, do you have a Zelda game in mind that you would like to see remade next?
Oh my god. I would really like the idea of Phantom Hourglass looking like Wind Waker HD.
Good.
Because you know, a remake, you want to like polish up a game that doesn't really hold up, and Phantom Hourglass doesn't look too good, you know, with the restrictions and limitations of the Nintendo DS. So having that look like, because I think personally Wind Waker HD, love the aesthetic of it, and I would even say Wind Waker HD is like the most beautiful game I've ever seen, period, you know. So seeing another game look like that and look that good, with like a complete rework of like the geography too, because Phantom Hourglass, you know, being like super like blocky and square in its design, again because of hardware limitations. And please let me sail on my own and don't have me draw a stupid line. I absolutely hated that. It was
Me too.
it was like people thought sailing in Wind Waker was boring. Let's just not sail at all, and it was like more boring. But also being a person that prefers Phantom Hourglass over Spirit Tracks.
Wow.
Hot take.
That is a hot take.
Yeah. I actually had like even more of a problem with riding trains. I thought that was even more boring than riding the boats.
Okay.
And I didn't like. I don't know. I just clicked a bit more with Phantom Hourglass, and I guess it's maybe because I played it first, so it's also, I think, more of a personal pick. But Phantom Hourglass looking like Wind Waker HD would be very cool. And for ordinary or standard Nintendo game, I would or like another Nintendo game, would really be to rematch. I know people about GA, although I would love Prime Trilogy HD, they still like hold up really well graphically. In my opinion, they still look really good even on the original trilogy on the Wii. I mean, Super Metroid also looks very good, but seeing Super Metroid with some kind of crazy new style and new animations and stuff, and staying really faithful to the original, but with a new style, I guess, and like maybe some quality of life improvements, I think that would be very cool. And I think Blue Point is a really good developer to handle it because they're very good with remakes, I think.
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so one thing I would add to the Phantom Hourglass remake is giving it the option of traditional controls.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And then
I forgot to say that. They would have to rework.
Would you have it keep the camera angle, or would you have it look more like Wind Waker to where the camera is behind the back instead of raised up?
I don't know. I sort of like, since you said the option to traditional controls, I would also like the idea of having the original control scheme on the touchscreen on the Switch. Just like in Mario Maker 2, you can use the controller there, but you can also use the touchscreen. So having it like, so I think maybe keep the original perspective, like to at least keep the feel and the vibe. But then have it transition into full 3D with movable camera when you're sailing. I would say that.
Well, do one better. Make it a 2-pack. Just put both the DS games on one cart, both Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, and just boom,
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say more no to that. More Zelda is better Zelda most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, but some of the dungeons required you to use the touchpad to like draw certain lines and stuff. But the bosses...
I mean, yeah, you could do that with the controller too.
Yeah.
If you hold a button and you use the control stick, it wouldn't be as intuitive, but I think it could still work, you know.
Yeah. I think it would be similar to like...
Skyward.
Sorry.
I believe.
You cut out a few times there. I don't...
Oh, okay. I was... I was just saying that if they can rework Skyward Sword with traditional controls, I think they could rework. Aonuma has said, it would be like impossible to, not impossible. He said one time it would be very difficult to make Skyward Sword HD to rework all the controls, but then Zelda fans being like, it does work. Stop it. And I think it could work with Phantom Hourglass too. Yeah.
Earlier, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were done talking, but it was just that your audio cut out. But I was going to say that drawing the lines in Phantom Hourglass is very similar to the way that the boomerang works, or the Gale boomerang in Twilight Princess, to where instead of drawing a line to the points that you want to hit, or the targets, you have to click on or lock on to the different targets, and then it basically does the same thing to where the boomerang follows the path of the targets that you selected. So there are different ways of them to do it. So that would be interesting. But Daniel,
Absolutely.
what is your Zelda game?
Okay, so well, actually, I was initially gonna say just make a 2-pack, but since that's not the case, thinking as far as games that have never really gotten a remake or whatnot goes, I would like to see the Oracle games get the Link's Awakening treatment. I think that would be really cool, just because a lot of people haven't played the Oracle games, myself included. It's one of the only Zelda games I haven't played are the Oracle games. So
you get to hop around as a kangaroo in one of them. Yeah.
I like that.
No, it really is great, because at the time that I was playing through it, my little brother was like 3 or 4 at the time, and he was going through a stage to where he really loved kangaroos. So getting to play as the kangaroo in a Zelda game, which he also liked Zelda games, so it was like 2 of his favorite things coming together. And it was a very random moment as well. I never thought you would be hopping around as a kangaroo in a Zelda game, so that was interesting.
They want. The Zelda games just have just weird stuff in them, right? So,
yeah, Marsupial in the
Link's
chat
Awakening,
says...
the volume up. Okay, I can do that. Hang on. I'll just...
Oh, no, I was talking about Marsupial saying kangaroo.
Yes, this intrigues me. But yeah, there's an alligator who sells you bananas. Zelda games just have weird right? So...
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, it would be really cool.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's a magical bubble at the bottom of the ocean floor that has a castle in it. I went there in my talking dragon boat.
Exactly. Exactly. Zelda games are weird.
Weird games.
Yes.
Weird games.
But we love them. So it's So yeah, anyways, the Oracle games would be really cool to see a remake of, especially with, A Link Between Worlds being sort of like a remake, reimagining / sequel of A Link to the Past, and then almost every 3D Zelda game now has gotten a remake, almost, and then now Link's Awakening. So the Oracle games and the Minish Cap are kind of the ones, aside from Zelda 1 and 2, that are kind of left like without getting the treatment. As far as other Zelda or other Nintendo in general game goes, I think it's pretty relevant right now. Banjo and Kazooie, anybody? Just port the Xbox Live Arcade versions, even if you have to, over to Switch.
Did you see one of? I think it was one of the developers for Banjo Kazooie said that, like they posted on Twitter about wanting. The first 2 games to be remade in the same way that like Spyro and Crash Bandicoot were remade.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, it was like the character designer who designed Banjo and Kazooie.
Yeah.
And and I agree. It would be great. We've gotten a bunch of remakes. We've gotten now Spyro and Crash have gotten their remakes, and those came. Why not Banjo? Why not? Just make it again. Like, you can make it a 2-pack game. I just want to put more games on one card. So, but they could easily do that. Like 2 N64 games on 2 very well received, well renowned N64 games. That'll sell.
What would really be amazing is if they put the Rare Replay collection on Switch. That way you would have 30 games on a cart.
Yes, including Banjo.
A lot of people think they might do that because Nintendo and Microsoft are like flirting a bit right now. They have a dev-mans going on, like put Banjo in Smash.
And it all started with Minecraft, because Nintendo released a console themed after a Xbox first party game.
Mm-hmm.
So that was crazy because it was like basically an Xbox game themed or a Microsoft themed 3DS or 2DS. So like if Nintendo's going to put like Xbox branding on a Nintendo game or not Nintendo game, on a Nintendo console, and all of the other flirting back and forth that they've had, I could see that. Because a lot of people didn't think that Banjo would actually come to Smash Brothers. And
Sakurai's the man who makes it happen.
Yeah. And like I kind of thought it was obvious that they would, if not Banjo, then someone, because not at this year's E3, but last year's E3, Daniel and I were next to where they who was it, GameSpot? Yeah, GameSpot was interviewing the person in charge of Xbox Live, and they asked him which character from Xbox that he would like to see in Smash Brothers, but he said Master Chief, which I don't think would fit at all.
Maybe he wasn't allowed to say Banjo.
Yeah. But then again, they had Snake from Metal Gear in Smash Bros. I didn't think that fit either. But
that's because
he did. So
what's the guy's name? Kojima and Sakurai are friends.
Yeah, and
so Kojima actually asked Sakurai to put Snake in Smash Bros.
Yeah, well, they had the Part 3, Metal Gear 3 on 3DS as well.
Oh, that's true.
They. I mean, I don't think. I think what you brought up, Daniel, is very possible. You know, again with and there was an interview with Phil Spencer where he said that these things are not a big deal. Like it's not some paperwork with. It is some. He says like there's not some big paperwork that takes forever. It's just like people just ask. It's not any more complicated than that. So. So getting Rare Replay on Switch would be a very easy deal for both parts. And I also think that speaking about Oracle games, I think that like Nintendo did with both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, I would think they would consider it like they built this engine for Link's Awakening and came up with this art style and this it's almost like a why not situation. It's almost like, okay, we made this engine, we made these assets, but please the fans, and it will maybe make a lot of money, and there wouldn't be much effort because it's the same engine and the games are so similar. In the Oracle games were technically almost like asset flips of Link's Awakening. So
they were,
I could totally
the originals were, totally like exactly same look. So, come on, Nintendo.
It would also be really cool to, because the bonus boss at the end of the Oracle games is a version of Ganon. So it would be really interesting to see what Ganon could look like in that art style, to where like you have this big scary looking monster guy, but he looks like all cute and adorable because he's all chibi looking. But yeah, did you have your other game that wasn't Zelda?
Yeah, Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh yeah, Banjo.
But now I've changed it to Rare Replay now. Just make it Rare Replay.
Yeah. To be fair, half of the games on Rare Replay are
like N64 games. Yeah.
Well, not that, but like, okay, so half of them are like Nintendo 64 games, and the other half is like Super Nintendo games.
Oh yeah.
And some of them like what is it? The Toad game. Battletoads.
Right.
Like, those games are games that you either remember playing when you were little, or you like seen people talking about them online, but when you go to actually play them, you only play it for like 30 seconds, and you're like, that
was the game.
Yeah, but Rare Replay, what?
I just said that was a. obviously.
Oh yeah. But Rare Replay had this cool thing. Unless I'm imagining this. I remember a feature that, like when you would go to play Battletoads, as an example, they would have like almost a greatest hits, or sort of like what NES Remix did, to where it had like certain levels, but like redone in a way to where like you can just go and do like a certain challenge. And I think that's the way that Rare Replay had it on some of the older games. Instead of playing through the entire games, you could do that, or you could go to like a file and select it so that you only play like what people would consider the highlights or like the best levels of the game.
Oh, so sort of like the masterpieces in Smash Bros. Brawl. You know what I mean?
No, I do not.
Ever play this? Okay, so in Brawl on the Wii, there was unlockable bonus.
What's a Wii?
In Super Smash Brothers Brawl.
Yeah, I got that.
For the Nintendo Wii.
What's a Wii?
It was the thing. It was like a GameCube, but like two GameCubes duct taped together, and then they gave you a baton. So
okay.
So in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, there was unlockable bonuses. Sakurai's nephew.
Okay.
Okay, so you could unlock these extra bonus demos. Basically, they were called masterpieces, and it was like little demos of different games that these characters were from. So,
did it have the level where like you had to play as Link and sneak past the Hyrule guards in the castle?
It did not.
Oh.
So
then it wasn't really a masterpiece, was it?
Little like 10-minute demos of these games or something like that, and they would have it not just the beginning of the game, but like basically what people would consider like the highlights of the game. You could go play like 10 minutes of like this one portion of the game. It was really big, like considering how much of a game, like how much information they had for all these games, to store it as like just a bonus thing in like two side menus of Super Smash Bros. It's like kind of it's like, whoa, it's kind of surprising that they put that much into it. I'm not surprised that they left it out of future releases, but it was neat. But yeah, something like that even, where it's just like, okay, these are just like the coolest little snippets of the game. You can play like just these little demos as well, but also have the whole games, the entire games there too, if you're gonna do it. So, because otherwise, where's the fun in that? So.
Yeah, that's basically the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess they had similar ideas, and it also had, well, Smash Bros has it too on like the trophies and stuff, but Rare Replay has like little trivia factoids and stuff about each of the games. That's really cool to go through and look at.
Yeah.
But I guess it's my turn. So the Zelda game that I would do Zelda 2, but completely remade in a Twilight Princess-esque style. So not necessarily
really
like
well, I think.
Yeah, because I don't think it would fit with like the Wind Waker art style. But a more realistic like Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword style, I think it would fit in, and then change it so that instead of like a 2D world, it's like a full 3D world. Because we talked about remaking it sort of like New Super Mario Bros. Or Metroid Samus Returns on the 3DS, to where it's 3D character models, but from a side view, so it looks 2D or whatever. But instead of doing it like that, make it so that it's like an actual 3D game. And then like have everything in the same locations in the overworld, because when you look at the overworld from Zelda 2, like it's really huge.
Yeah.
So having that fully realized in 3D, I think would look really cool.
Would they have like the enemies like just walk around, like imagine if like, there's like a full like Twilight Princess Hyrule field, would you have the enemies just like walk around and then when you walk into them
Yeah.
becomes like a random encounter? I mean, I can envision that pretty well, that it would look like almost like Smash Bros, which you were saying with 2D, with 3D models. I can imagine it looking something like that.
Well, that was the old way that we wanted, or that we discussed. But thinking about it now, I would like to see it Twilight Princess. So everything would basically be like Twilight Princess or Twilight Princess HD, to where there's not like the RPG encounter thing, to where like you walk into an enemy and then it takes you to the battle screen or whatever. They would just be walking around in the overworld like normal 3D Zelda enemies.
Would you have the dungeons be 2D as well?
No, they would be 3D as well.
Okay.
There'd have to be a lot of like big reworking for the dungeons, I think.
Yeah. But I think they could do it.
A lot of like long ways and that.
Yeah, I imagine like, because there's a lot of vertical moving in the dungeons and stuff. So like for stuff like that, I imagine it kind of being like Dodongo's cavern in Ocarina of Time, to where like there's the pillars that rise up and down.
Yeah.
So I imagine like you could do something like that with them, and then
And it's gonna have the most epic Dark Link fight ever. like the Dark Link fight in Ocarina of Time, but like 10 times more epic.
And then
it has to be. It's the final boss. So
well, thinking about it, like imagine like the Thunderbird or whatever his name is, but in full 3D. Kind of like 𝐅𝐸𝐿, or however you pronounce his name, from Twilight Princess. But instead of it being, I don't know, like that boss fight had a lot of potential. And what they did with it was really cool. But I felt like there was so much more that they could have done with it, because you have a realistic looking Zelda game, or at least realistic for the time, and then you get to like this epic dragon fight in like a city in the sky floating around, and you're basically Spider-Man going back and forth between the pillars with the hook shots or the claw shots. So like there was a lot of cool stuff that they could have done with that. But I imagine something similar to that, but like replace it with the Thunderbird. I think it would be really cool. And I like the idea of like having the towns named after all of the different sages and stuff. And then there's they renamed in the re-releases of Zelda 2, they renamed the fire dragon thing that you fight to 𝐓𝐼𝐺𝐬 or Volva or something like that. So having another fight with 𝐓𝐺𝐬𝐿-esque boss would be really cool, because I like that boss fight in Ocarina of Time, like whack-a-mole.
Are they gonna keep I am error?
Yeah.
They have to.
That's
his name.
They have
that's his name. They have to.
error in HD 4K ray tracing account. It's gonna smoke hard.
And then my the other game would just be Super Mario Sunshine.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
With the Odyssey engine. No.
Engine, yeah, exactly.
It would be the new... No, what was the name of it? Super Mario 3D World.
You think Super Mario 3D World would be a better engine to use?
I like the way Super Mario 3D World looks more than Super Mario Odyssey, because 3D World has... Like, the character model has like a kind of like a cool glow around him. If that makes... Like, if you look at it and then look at the Odyssey character model, I like the way that 3D World looks better than
I understand.
Odyssey, but I like the way Odyssey plays more than 3D World. So like if they made it look like that, but it still played like Odyssey or Sunshine, I think that would be really cool. And a lot of people think that Nintendo hinted at something to do with Sunshine like a few weeks ago.
Right.
Oh, the infamous tweet, the edited tweet.
I think people are kind of reaching with that one myself. Like,
when
I don't know.
When it came to the point of like analyzing the hair, that the hair would prove that it's a different render. So it's not the Odyssey render, it's a different render, the same render that they used in the commercial. That was like, you're reaching a bit too far, I think.
Yeah.
I remember the same thing happened, I think before the Switch came out. I don't really remember. It was
it the render of Link?
Yeah, the render of Link that was, I think it was just the Smash Bros. Render of Link, but it was slightly higher quality.
It was a new render. It was like, I'd have to find it now, but it's used in like Nintendo New York store, for example. They have a sign up with that render.
They also have a giant full-sized model of Link.
Yeah, they do.
That's
but
really
I think
cool.
it's supposed to be, it's like a render of Twilight Princess Link, though. That's the thing. But people like just saw the new render and they're like, "This is what it's gonna be." And they just have used it for marketing purposes only, right? Like because obviously that wasn't the one they used for Breath of the Wild. So that's the thing. It's like they have to still have marketing. Like that's probably all it is, guys.
Yeah.
So
the version of Link that I thought looked really cool. Did you guys? Well, I know Daniel did, but Chica, did you see the Nintendo released the images of like when they were developing Breath of the Wild, and they used the engine for like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword Link.
Oh yeah,
and I had them all standing there. And then they even had
I saw that.
Yeah, they had a cutscene from Twilight Princess where you're in Kakariko Village with the little kids and stuff. They had a screenshot of that cutscene, but in the Breath of the Wild engine, and I thought it looked better than Breath of the Wild does. HD. Well, it looked better than Twilight Princess HD, but I thought it also looked better than Breath of the Wild did. But those, I imagine those screenshots were just from like computers that were a lot more powerful than the Nintendo Switch is.
Probably.
So, because they weren't like they weren't optimized for a Switch or a Wii U or whatever. They were just like screenshots of ideas they had. So kind of like the Zelda Wii U tech demo that they showed off whenever they first showed off the Wii U. Like if that would have been a real game, I don't think like there's no way that that game could have ran on the Wii U. So
yeah, it looks very, very, very technically advanced.
Yeah, like maybe it can render that one small room, but like having a giant Hyrule field and everything, like there's no way that I could have done that. But anyways, those are my things. Chica, you have your Zelda fan project that you wanted to talk about the last time. So do you want to go ahead and tell everyone about it and what it is? And then whenever I cut this segment out and upload it by itself, I'll just have like screenshots or the trailer playing over it. So instead of us, like, instead of people looking at us, they can just like look at the screenshots and stuff. So
absolutely. Well, so I'm going to talk about my now.
Yes.
Or
yes.
Okay. So yeah, I am. I'm working on a Legend of Zelda fan game. It's called Chica's Curse, and you can find like a little trailer of it with screenshots that Jesse is gonna show you. And it's like a sci-fi Zelda, because I've always loved the idea of having a sci-fi Zelda, because whenever Zelda is like reaching for more futuristic stuff, like they did with like the Twilight Realm, who looks kind of like alien and looks a bit like sci-fi. And then with the Lenaru region in Skyward Sword, also has this like more futuristic vibe. And I just love the Chica stuff and the Chica aesthetic in Breath of the Wild so much. I think it looks so good and I love it. And I was like, when I finished Breath of the Wild, I was like, we need a science fiction Zelda like yesterday. And I was really hoping that the next game after Breath of the Wild would be like a futuristic Zelda game. That was like my big dream. But then when they announced Breath of the Wild 2, I was like, okay, I have another big dream, which is that game, basically. And so I decided to make my own fan game that is a futuristic Zelda game. And it's a game. It's also a futuristic Zelda game, but it also features the Lorule Kingdom, and you can play as both Zelda and Hilda. And I've been working on it for like a couple of months only, so it's still in a pretty early stage.
Wait. You've been doing this for just a few months?
Yeah.
That's crazy, because it looks like you could have told me that you were like working on it for like 2 years, and I would have believed you. So, looks really good.
No, it's only like yeah, I've only done the models so far and not done the animations and stuff yet. Well, understandably, I will not release it publicly for download to avoid sounds and stuff. What I'm gonna do is I'm just videos with game plan to kind of show up. And the game in the version of Hyrule, and I have managed to make this game just like travel like instantly. You stand on the spot and you travel to the other world, like you don't have a portal or anything. And that's like another thing. So this game is like things I would hope to see in future Zeldas as a futuristic game. And I've also wanted them to return to parallel worlds in a future Zelda game because I really liked that in the Twilight Realm. I liked the Dark World and I liked Lorule a lot. And I think they could do something very cool with parallel worlds. Maybe Breath of the Wild 2 will have parallel worlds. We don't know. Maybe we will travel between post Breath of the Wild Hyrule and maybe like a future version of Hyrule where it's dark and that's where most of the dungeons are. We'll see about that. But yeah, I'm currently making a fan. That's about it.
Well, it looked really cool. It gave me a vibe of like Majora's Mask mixed with Skyward Sword, especially on the dungeon screenshots.
Yeah, and you play as a Zelda, a young version of Zelda that looks kind of emo, because I like that aesthetic a bit.
Do you have any? Sorry.
No.
I was going to ask if Daniel had any questions about it or anything.
Oh no, I mean I'm just taking a look at the screenshots, and I think I like the like just the general art style. Like it's a very colorful, like very there's a lot of very vibrant colors, and I think a lot of times people will be like, I want a dark game, and then they think that to make this they just have to make it very washed out and plain looking, when that's not the case, right? And it's really cool to see sort of the colors with like Hyrule Castle and these like billboards and neon signs and stuff kind of all coming together. So I don't know, it's really cool. I like how it looks. So
nice.
But yes, but go on. You were gonna say you had more to say. So
yeah, and I also take some inspiration from concept arts because I am a little bit in love with the concept arts they showed from the GDC conference, and obviously, I'm talking about the concept art with the motorcycle and the guitar and stuff. So there's a screenshot of Zelda playing a guitar. There's a screenshot of a UFO, which also was in the concept art. And there's also a screenshot. I made like a shrine in the game that is like golden, because that was in the concept arts too. So I wanted to explore that too. Um, so I've been like making games for like 6 years now, just making games on my own for fun and learning how to do it. And this is like my first like big thing that I'm making. And yeah.
What kind of other games have you made in the past?
I've made like a Swedish adventure game called 𝐘𝐨𝐿, and I just made that game and like showed it to a couple of friends. It wasn't really good. It was very buggy and stuff. Because making games is like hard. I cannot like overstate how hard it is. It's like when you fix something in a game, you get like 13 other bugs. Making games is like whack-a-mole. You're like, okay, here's a bug, let's fix it, and that's gonna trigger like 13 other bugs, and you just like keep going, and when you think you're done, it's still like so many bugs and glitches, and it's so hard. And I have such big admiration for independent game developers, especially those who are only one person. I'm like, wow. Like,
sorry.
I mean, one of my biggest like admiration is for the Hollow Knight guys.
Oh, yeah.
They're like 3 people and they made that game. I'm like, wow. Really cool.
Yeah, it's a good game too.
So we have other friends. One is I've featured it a lot on my channel before. Tomoya's Twilight Princess project. It's changed a few times.
Yeah, I saw that.
It began as a fan remake of Twilight Princess in HD, but then Nintendo announced their version of Twilight Princess HD for the Wii U. So they were like, okay, well, now we have to do something like no one's going to care about it because now there's already an official HD Twilight Princess, so we have to do something to make it unique. So they were going to like change the character models of the enemies to make them look better. They were going to add in a new Shadow Temple-esque dungeon with like a new area and everything. And then like as the team grew and the project changed, it now like it's went through a few different things, like a few different versions, but now I believe it's supposed to be a fan-made Twilight Princess 2.
Yeah.
And we showed off like he sent some gameplay and stuff of what the newer version looks like, and there was one cool scene in it that he sent me a demo to play of like a one-room dungeon, and it has like I've shown a clip of it, but he actually made a purple tunic because like I asked him if he could like make a purple tunic, and he put like the GOJ on it for like Game Over Jesse.
Oh, the Game Over Jesse.
Yeah,
sure.
So it was really cool. And then like I think that looks better than like the official Twilight Princess HD thing. And the overworld that he's built, like it's not the size of like Breath of the Wild, but I think it's larger than the Twilight Princess overworld, and it's just him and like a few other people that are just doing it for fun, but they've been doing it for fun for like 5 years. So it's crazy the ambition that some people have, but it also
Yeah.
makes really cool stuff. Like I
Yeah,
always
I also have to
go on.
I also have to say that too. I love Zelda fan games. They are also like super inspiring to see that project, the Twilight Princess 2 project. I saw that. That was amazing and very inspiring to me. You know, someone recently are making like A Link to the Past HD. Looks incredible.
Oh
Someone way
I
back,
seen that.
like a year or two ago, someone made like Link's Awakening 64. I saw
Oh
that.
yeah.
And all of these projects
We're
are
not
very
supposed
cool.
to talk about that.
Oh, we're not.
Really? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, the person who made it, like, he sent some like gameplay demos and stuff to like our friends at Hard for Games,
Oh yes.
and they
Okay.
did an overview of it, I guess, and talked about it. And then
Okay.
around that time was when like Nintendo was sending like cease
Oh,
and
all the
desist
games.
stuff to everyone.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
he-
Bar went down.
Yeah, like he made all of his videos private or unlisted so that people couldn't find them and stuff, because I think he wants to finish the game without people from Nintendo causing him problems.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But I guess like, yeah, I don't know. Every time I see someone,
But to me,
yes,
it just kind of makes sense, you know, because people who read, they make like fan fiction and fan art and stuff. So it's just natural to me that people who play games make fan games. That's like the game equivalent of fan fiction.
That's
And I think it's just cool and inspiring when people make fan games. And
Yeah.
it's I guess it's a bit too bad that Nintendo takes down. I think they're being harsh. They even took down like AM2R, which was just like crazy ambitious, you know.
Yeah, that was AM2R, rest in peace. I mean, that one makes some more sense because they had their own Metroid.
Yeah,
remake
okay,
company.
that's true. That's true.
But
That's good.
still, like a lot of people, the way they handled it was like it was bad. It was
Yeah.
bad PR. So
there's
yeah.
So with the Link's Awakening 64 thing that we're not supposed to talk about,
But here we go.
I really
We're
love
opening it.
yeah I really love the like that engine used for the 64 Zelda games. So the fact that like we were getting a third one, even though it was like unofficial, but it was still based off of like an actual Zelda game. Like it gave me, I don't know if I would say hope, but like when 𝐓𝐻𝐲 remade Ocarina of Time and Nintendo gave them a little bit of freedom with it to change some of the stuff, and they did such a good job with it that they let 𝐓𝐻𝐲 remake Majora's Mask. And
Yeah.
they did such a good job with Ocarina of Time that Nintendo gave 𝐓𝐻𝐲 even more freedom. So then we seen like 2 new pawns added. We seen side quests changed. We seen
Yeah.
like where the bank is in a different location. The bomber's notebook works a bit differently. Like the bosses and some of the dungeons were changed around. And so the way that I seen it was like, okay, so they did Ocarina of Time with a little bit of freedom to make certain stylistic changes, and then it turned out so well that Nintendo gave them even more freedom with Majora's Mask. So then I thought
Yeah,
it was
that's
all
true.
going to lead up to Nintendo letting 𝐓𝐻𝐲 make their own new original Zelda game using that same engine. But they didn't. They ended up, I think they used the engine to make 𝐓𝐼𝐢, which was still
Yeah.
a good game, but it's like, if you're going to use like that Zelda 64 engine to make something, why are you using it to make like 𝐓𝐼𝐢 was fun, but it's like a third Hero of Time game would have like made everyone cry. It's like the Wind Waker engine on the GameCube. They used it for the Wind Waker, obviously, but then they used it for like that Star Fox adventure game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that was a good game as well, but I'm sure like if Nintendo would have let someone use it to make like the original Wind Waker 2 idea that they had.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. But Twilight Princess was fun, so I don't know. It's all good.
I don't know.
It reminds me of the YouTube guy.
Which one?
The one that was just like, I don't know.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Like he for those who don't know, like there's this guy that like he goes on these like long, really fast-paced, kind of crazy rants to where like he sounds so sure of himself and everything, but he always ends it with, I don't know.
I don't know.
And what?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
You have no idea what we're talking about, do you, Chica?
Excuse me?
I said you have no idea who we're talking about, do you?
I mean, you said, do you know about the YouTube guy?
Yeah.
Trying
That's
to pin down which YouTube
which
guy
YouTube?
are about the like 25
I don't
million.
know
There's
what
like
the guy's name
25 million. There's like 25 million YouTube guys. I'm trying to figure out which one.
yeah.
Yeah, I forget what his name is actually, but
I'm gonna see if I have a picture. I think I have a picture with him. Yeah. This was like before I lost weight and grew my hair back out.
from
But-
last year. Yeah. I look dazed out of my mind in that photo.
Yeah, but that's the guy. Like he dresses like he plays a character to where like he dresses like super goth and stuff, and he acts like I don't know. He said that he used to work at this. It was a studio that was developing a reality show, and people would send in audition tapes of their characters, and he said like he used to have like he was an editor or something like that, so he based his character off like an amalgamation or a combination of like a bunch of different crazy characters that people submitted for the reality show.
That's so funny.
Yeah. But anyways, what are we talking about? Yeah, your fan game. Your fan game.
We were talking about like fan games in general.
Yeah. Have you
Then
seen
we're talking with
Adventure Maker? Is the official name of it now? It used to be Zelda Maker. It looks
Oh,
like
no,
it looks like not quite the 16-bit style of A Link to the Past. It kind of looks like what was that
Is
Zelda
it
game?
Legend Maker now?
Maybe.
Yeah, but they changed the name to avoid,
Yeah, Nintendo sent a thing
Copyright
that's
issues.
like you can't use like Zelda characters or names and stuff, so they're like, okay, well, if we can't call it Zelda Maker, then we're going to call it Legend Maker. And I guess Nintendo again was like, no, you can't use that either. Like,
I think I think they were okay with using Legend Maker because it's kind of vague enough,
yeah.
But yeah,
But
It's,
it reminds me of what's the game that I always forget the name of, but it was made by the people that we were supposed to have come on for the interview, but never did. They sent us the review copies of the game.
oh, the Pixel Castle,
Yeah. What was the
Castle
name of the
Pixel?
game though?
Blossom Tales.
Yeah, Blossom Tales. We were supposed to have them on to talk about their game, and every time that I talk to them, I'm like, yeah, we'll have you on. And then, as you well know, our scheduling is not very good. So,
No.
yeah.
it does fluctuate a little bit.
Yeah. But what made you decide on the art style and everything that you did? Because I wouldn't necessarily say the art style does, but if you look at the concept art for Breath of the Wild and you see the old champions, like there was the Gerudo champion that had what was it? Not it wasn't a hook shot. It was like a grappler hook thing
Yeah, it was
or something like that.
Huh? I did miss this actually. I haven't.
Yeah,
It
they.
was just in concept art.
Yeah, it was
Wild.
in creating a champion book. It was concept art. Your art style reminds me of because they didn't draw it in the art style of Breath of the Wild. They just drew it as like very. Maybe they made it before they decided to go with the Breath of the Wild art style, but it was the original 4 champions to where it had the Gerudo, the Kokiri, the Zora, and the Goron. But then they took out they replaced the Kokiri with the Koroks, and then they, instead of going with the Korok champion, they had a Rito champion, and they added in the Rito. But anyways, it kind of reminds me of that because it has the same futuristic style, and it always reminds me of the original interviews for the first Zelda game. Whenever they talk about it having, like, instead of Triforce pieces, it was supposed to have computer pieces. Or computer.
Isn't that what?
Chip.
Isn't
pieces.
that why he's called? Isn't that why he's called Link? He was supposed to link together.
Yeah,
That's
the
why it's
past
called
and
Link,
the
I think.
future.
Yeah.
Like, he was supposed to use the computer chips to go back and forth between time, and Link would have
Somehow.
been the link between them.
My computer doesn't let me do that.
Oh.
No.
No time travel.
Well, this was the 80s, so
That's true.
yeah. Their
Computers were
idea,
better
their ideas of like technology that would be out in 30 years was very, very different. Like I love if you watch Back to the Future, whenever they go to like last
They
year,
go to 2015.
yeah, whatever year it was, they go to it, and it's like that's not what it really looked like. But
Where are our flying cars?
yeah, I'll accept it though.
Yeah.
But yeah, what mostly inspired the art style that you went with? Chica, hello.
Hey.
Okay, what mostly inspired the art style that you
Legit.
went with?
Yeah, the leg was.
Huh?
What inspired the art style for your fan game?
I mean, nothing in particular. I guess I was inspired by Breath of the Wild and wanted to make it more a futuristic version of Breath of the Wild. So I don't know if I have a cool answer to that. Actually, I was just like inspired in general of things people made within the Zelda community. I did see something called Echoes of the Future, which I don't think was a game. It was a Fallout style concept idea for a Zelda game, and someone made like some pictures that was like a Fallout style Zelda game. I saw that and thought it was very, very cool because it was all an idea of a futuristic Zelda. So I guess I took a little bit of inspiration from that too.
Okay, so this, I hope you can see it, is that's the Kokiri champion and the original Gerudo
they were
champion.
supposed to have a Kokiri champion.
Yeah.
Ah. Okay.
They were also supposed to have the Minish and everything else in the game, but maybe they'll end up in part 2. Who knows? Like, they could just be like the Minish. They were always there. They're just so tiny you didn't see them.
So small, you never
Yeah.
saw them.
Yeah.
Like, you took a wrong turn in
You just-
Kokiri Forest.
It was there. It was
Yeah.
just too foggy.
Yeah.
You accidentally dropped your shields on them because your inventory was full. So you're just like, oh shit!
Yeah,
Sorry.
you completely, Link just destroyed their home shield surfing.
Oh no.
Oh.
Yeah. But
Oh.
are you guys ready for the Zelda mailbag? To answer the questions?
Yeah.
Alright.
Absolutely.
So, hello everyone and welcome to the Zelda mailbag here with us is a guest for the first time, Chica. And of course,
Chica Witch
yes, Chica
is my
Witch.
full,
And of
my
course,
full username. Yeah.
we have Daniel here.
Hello.
Chica Witch is also a Patreon supporter. And she had a discussion topic, so we're going to start the mailbag out with her question. So go ahead and ask your question, Chica.
What's your favorite art style from any Zelda game?
Do you want to go first, Daniel?
Sure. So I really like Breath of the Wild's art style a lot because it's just very painterly. It's just one of those games that I just keep stopping and like playing the game and like the sunset comes and I think I admire the views in Breath of the Wild more than in real life, but it's beautiful. But other than that, I also really like the look of like A Link to the Past and some of the older games. I don't know. It's A Link to the Past in particular is always a big soft spot for me. So that game's there's not much of like an artistic art style, but I don't know. It's whenever I fire that game up, I like it feels like home. I don't know.
How do you feel about Four Swords Adventures on the GameCube? Because it's like
I like that game's look actually a lot because it's like A Link to
the
the Past, but there's, like,
GameCubed version of A Link to the Past.
Yeah. No, I like how that game looks a lot, actually. Because yeah, it's like that. It's got they used a lot of Link to the Past's assets and stuff like that, but then added like nice shadowing and more detail, and of course it's a little up-res, so that's good. Yeah, but that's me. Favorite art style.
All right. I'm going to have to go with RPG and Sonic Forces in the chat that says Wind Waker HD. I would say Skyward Sword because there's a video that I have of it's a comparison of Skyward Sword in 4K and Skyward Sword on the Wii. And I really love the way that looks sometimes, because like there was a certain mod that I was using that made it look better when you were inside, but when you were outside, it just changed the lighting in a way that like it was good for one part but it wasn't good for another part. But the way that it looks when it's like a close-up of Link and like he has like just the way that the skin tone and the model looked really good. But since that was like an unofficial thing because Skyward Sword's not in HD, kind of like how I was saying earlier, the way that Twilight Princess looked in the Breath of the Wild engine looked really great, but that's not an official game either. So I'm gonna go with Wind Waker HD with Sonic Forces and RPG in the chat. They both said Wind Waker HD, so I'm going to say Wind Waker HD. Because it looks so good.
It does.
It
does look
looks
good.
incredibly. Yeah.
What about you, Chica?
Can I? I mean, I think it's a difference between graphics and art style. You know, you can still have the best art style even if you're on the Wii, you know, because it's about the art style and not the graphical quality. So with Wind Waker HD, I think I like the graphics more than the aesthetic, if it makes sense. I'm gonna have to go with Breath of the Wild also because, as I said before, I just love the Chica aesthetic so much. I love the language and I love the blue, like blue is my favorite, and the way it glows. And I love how like in the towers in the overworld that they're like green when you don't take them, but then when you take as Daniel said, the view sunset that is just like super colorful and tastefully done. And also have a shout out to Twilight Princess, which is like my second favorite art style. I just love the bleakness of it, and the Twilight Realm looks really cool. And again, with graphics versus art style. So if you, as you said, if you look at Twilight Princess in 4K and those comparison videos, I don't know if there's the Twilight Princess 4K. I know there's a Twilight Princess 1080p running on an emulator. If you look at those comparisons, it looks really, 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 really. So I would say those two are perhaps tied for me.
All right. You guys can, if you go to the Google Doc, you can look for a question, or if someone asks a question in the chat, you can take those. But look for your questions while I take this one. So
Sure.
the question I liked comes from Retro Cheats, who asks, do you think there will be a Dark World in Breath of the Wild 2, spirits, Twilight, etc., or time travel? All of you on the podcast. So he wants all of us to answer, but kind of like the Spirit Realm or Twilight Realm or whatever, just like a second parallel world. What kind would you guys like to see? Like, obviously, how the Dark World or Lowrol is just like a darker mirror image of normal Hyrule, but it just like, instead of a lake, there will be a swamp or something. And then the Twilight Realm just kind of like took over Hyrule, but that wasn't necessarily the Twilight
really a
Realm.
parallel world.
Yeah, it was just like the Twilight taking over Hyrule. But then like Ocarina of Time had a really cool parallel world, if you want to call it that, where it was like the future and the past and stuff.
That was very cool.
If done properly, I would go with that because I'm a big fan of time travel. There's a part in Breath of the Wild to where it's like you only have a picture of where the memory takes place, and one of them was like it just had these two trees, I think, or maybe it was just one tree in the picture. But the pictures were supposed to have been from 100 years ago. And if you look at the tree, like there's a small tree in it. And in my head, I'm like, 100 years later, that small tree should be huge. So I was like running around trying to get the memory, looking for this giant tree. Because the previous game, Skyward Sword, like there's literally like part of the game is where you go back in time to plant a seed to grow a tree in the future. And then you go to the future and the tree's huge. So in my head, I'm like Nintendo. You literally made a game where you plant a tree and then you go to the future and the tree's bigger. And now you have like a gameplay mechanic to where you're looking for a tree that was small 100 years ago. Even Ocarina of Time had it so that like you could plant the beans and 7 years later they would be bigger. So like almost every game they had to where they had that mechanic to where like there's something growing with time. But in Breath of the Wild, it's like, no, you're still looking for the small tree. And I'm like, but that doesn't make sense.
No. But alas.
Yeah. But, so I don't think it was done as good as it could have been with Breath of the Wild. Mostly because the past took place in cutscenes and stuff. But in Breath of the Wild 2, if you are able to either travel to the past, like before it happened or something, like if they did a weird time travel paradox thing, like they did in Skyward Sword, to where like you kill Demise or whatever in the present or the imprisoned, but then you also go to the past to kill Demise again or something like that.
Yeah.
If they do something like that to where like Link ends up like the Link from Breath of the Wild ends up being the hero from 1,000 years ago that also defeated Ganon or something like that, I think that could be cool because it's like the entire game you're being told about this heroic legendary hero and then you end up being that hero. So I think something like that could be cool.
I mean, they did have the Gate of Time in that picture. Remember Monolith Soft mystery tweet when they were
Yeah.
tweeting that they were hiring for a new Zelda, and they have this picture, and the Gate of Time is in that picture. So what if we see the Gate of Time in Breath of the Wild 2? It would be.
There was a news story like a couple of weeks ago, because that news story was like a while back, but there was a new one from a couple of weeks ago where Monolith Soft did something to where like they came out again saying that they like created a new team, or they were hiring more people or something like that.
Okay.
But it was also, I think it was around the same time as the Nintendo Direct, because in the Direct they showed off that they were finished remaking the first Xenoblade in HD.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe like they were working on that and they finished it, and then they began production on whatever the Zelda project was.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it makes me wonder, like, are they helping with Breath of the Wild too, like they did on the original Breath of the Wild, or are they working on their own entirely new Zelda project?
I mean, they could. You never know.
Yeah. But anyways, you guys.
I mean, I could definitely see it, because I simultaneously want to see a rebuilt Hyrule, you know, like in the Champions Ballad cutscene with the castle town all built up and lively. But I also want to see like a destroyed Hyrule, sort of like the cast. I have image or like fantasy that the castle is gonna like rise up and it's gonna create like cracks stuff and like change the landscape completely and reveal like paths to underground Hyrule. So I kind of want kind of different versions of or two different ways that the overworld could transform, because I keep coming back to Alnuma saying that it's going to be the same world but with new gameplay. So I could totally see it, that stuff is happening, like when the castle is rising up, you can still go back in time to the, and it would also be kind of like easy to done because they have already done the entire overworld, and I think that would be very cool and interesting.
Yeah. Like, it wouldn't take them any extra time to create everything because it's already created.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, like, that would be really cool. Ocarina of Time, because you said that you would like to see it remade, but you would also like to see it, like, destroyed and stuff. I think Ocarina of Time... Sorry, what?
Yeah, not completely destroyed, but like the landscape changing due to like earthquakes when the castle is rising up, or whatever castle is gonna do.
Yeah. I would like it if there was something similar to Ocarina of Time when you're in Hyrule Castle Town and everything is normal and cheerful and everyone's completely fine, and then when you go to the future, like, everything's kind of broken and burnt down and there's like redeads everywhere. I would like to see something like that in Breath of the Wild too, to where it's like you get it the way that it is originally, like Lon Non Ranch is completely destroyed and the castle and everything's destroyed, or Castle Town, not the castle, but then you do get to see everything remade and stuff. What you mentioned with the earthquake or like the castle lifting up and it cracking and stuff, it reminded me of Skyward Sword, the way that like the temple at the end of it like comes down and like, it fits perfectly. Exactly. Yeah, like the opposite. Which there's also concept art in Creating a Champion to where it's like Ganondorf standing on top of like this huge like mountain thing that almost floated up. So that'd be really cool if they did do that, which Hyrule Castle is lifting in the air, so I guess like Ganondorf's doing the same thing that he did in Ocarina of Time. Where he's
I
like,
guess so.
he loves his floating castles.
They're fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost feel like we'll just have, rather than like parallel worlds, I think this time it'll probably just be new areas, like underground labyrinths and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's they put a lot of work into the world, and I feel like having to create a second version of that world would be amazing. I'd love to see it, but I'm not sure if they'll go the distance to do that. I don't know.
Yeah. There's the interview. So, like, I think you're right, Daniel, because there's the interview with 𝐴𝐿 when they first announced they were making DLC, and people were asking, like, what kind of new land are we going to see, or where are we going to visit next? Because I think people had the idea of, like, Witcher 3 in their head, to where, like, you have this huge map, and then the DLC just adds, like, another huge map to it. But 𝐴𝐿 said something like he loves this version of Hyrule so much that he wouldn't like he wouldn't build another area to do stuff in. He would just give you more stuff to do in the world that we already have.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of odd, because if you watch the videos where people like mod the game to where they can go anywhere, and they go to like the landmass that's like to the left of the map or north of the map, there's still like certain buildings and houses and stuff that you can find, but like I
feel like it's for decoration, but still, like,
yeah, but like some of it, like you would never be able
looking,
yeah,
you know,
I guess
I don't know. I'm not a developer, so
yeah, I guess do we go to the next question now?
Yeah,
Chica,
so.
Sure.
Did you pick out your next question? Did you see one that you liked? Or if you need more time, Daniel can go with his, if he's found one.
Yeah, I'm actually fine with you picking questions and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sure. Well, there is a question here from Gus Laz, who is also a Patreon supporter. I think for both of us, actually.
He was in the chat earlier as well.
And he asked, hypothetically, you're the producer of Breath of the Wild sequel. How would you structure the game? Quest style, the players to collect medallions, 2 worlds, traveling between past and present, you get the idea. So this is kind of expanding kind of a little bit more on our last question, but the game's overall structure, where Breath of the Wild structure was just like, here's your tutorial area, you have 4 main locations you have to go to in Ganon, and you can do it whatever, you know, order you want. That was that game's sort of structure. But let's say you have to overhaul the whole structure of the game. What's your...
Okay, question, Daniel.
Okay,
you can answer this as well, Chica. In Ocarina of Time...
Yeah.
What? Oh, okay, so I was going to say, in Ocarina of Time, you get... Like, you have to get the medallions. They give you the medallions when you save them.
Yeah.
But what is the purpose of the medallions?
Plot MacGuffins.
Exactly.
The medallions are a checklist, basically. Like, that's...
But, like, are they used for anything?
No. No.
I remember as a kid that I thought as a kid that they were using the medallions to create the bridge to Ganon. They were melting them together to create the bridge. And I thought that it was so stupid. Like, why do they need all these medallions to just create this stupid bridge? Why couldn't I just hook shot over to the bridge? Why did you have me to get all of these medallions just to create that bridge? I thought so as a kid.
I know in the beta for Ocarina of Time or Zelda 64, whatever, there was there were some screenshots and maybe interviews. I know there's screenshots for sure, but I don't know about the interviews. I may just be remembering it wrong. But like, you would equip the fire medallion and you would get an ability similar to like Din's Fire. Or if you used the fire medallion with the arrows, you would get fire arrows. And then the like the water medallion shows ice instead of water.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like presumably
Arrows?
you would have gotten ice arrows, and like even with the light arrows, like you get the light arrows, Zelda gives them to you, but you also get them in the spirit temple where you're also given the light medallion. So it kind of seems like maybe like those were connected. I don't know exactly what they would have been used for, but that's just in my head what I imagine they would have done. Like the same way that you had the medallions in A Link to the Past that would like cause lightning or an earthquake or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I thought they would have been used in the same way. Otherwise, why were they equipable? Like what would they have done if they didn't give you some sort of ability? But in the final game, are they just like they're not used for anything?
Nothing. I'm telling you. Like like I think the in-game thing is they've added their power to yours, but
Because
nothing changed. Like you don't get stronger from that. You know, you don't. Nothing
no, you get
changes.
like because you get the spiritual stones. Like you physically need them to open
to open the door. There's a purpose for them. Yeah.
and the medallions. So like I thought it was something like what Chica mentioned, where like the medallions don't make the bridge.
I mean, they don't seem to. He doesn't pull them out and use
then
them like
when
he
you
does
get
with spiritual stones.
When
right?
you
Like,
get
they-
inside the castle, like it doesn't break the barrier because then you have to like go and like
go to
set
all the different areas to break the barrier.
yeah. So like it's not the medallions that do that either.
No, they're pointless. They're like just little like tokens. They're just little plot MacGuffins. It's just
like
to show that you beat that dungeon already.
Well, in that case, for the question, because they asked like what would we do if we were a producer, and they mentioned the medallions, and like so in A Link to the Past, you saved the sages,
Yes.
and they would give you
Yes. Nothing. They wouldn't give you anything. They're just like, yo, thanks. They'd give you advice.
But then like they would go in there like crystals and teleport away or whatever.
Yeah. Because
But
they
you
were,
didn't
like-
get anything from them.
No, they didn't give you any item or anything.
I thought they gave you like pendants or something.
No, you get 3 pendants at the beginning of the game, which you need the 3 pendants. You physically
Yeah.
need them
Okay.
to get the master
So it's the
sword,
same thing.
which is it's the same thing. But to answer Gus question, well, I'll wait for Jesse to get back since he just decided that he doesn't love me anymore. Why doesn't Jesse love me?
Come back to us, Jesse.
He's gone. I have to cough. Oh. But
oh
I would give, I guess, similar to Breath of the Wild, where you have dungeons throughout the map, and all it is you can do it in any order, but just as long as you beat all the dungeons, and then you go fight the final boss. So I guess sure, give them pendants or whatever. It doesn't have to be pendants themselves, but I think Breath of the Wild structure is very good, where it's just like you've got these 4 main objectives and game.
yeah.
I'm
Do it
gonna look
however you
this
want
up.
to. So you don't even have to do all the main objectives if you don't really want to. That really resonates with me because I like to take my time and just do whatever
Yeah,
I want.
I
Fight
agree.
Lionels
I agree.
and yes. The sage Gus Laz in the chat says the sages give you advice. They do that too, or they just get sentimental with you a bit. But they don't. They just give you these medallions that have no purpose. So yeah. Yeah. But what's our next? I don't know. Do you guys have any ideas for your game structure?
I mean, yeah, I guess I would collect like 8 bottles of water to rehydrate Ganondorf so you can defeat him.
you, you have to rehydrate him first.
Yeah, you feel kind of sorry
Yeah,
for
see?
it. You're just like, you're the bad guy.
It's
You need
equipable.
water.
He has it on the C down spot.
Yeah.
And that's also Adult Link inside the Deku tree.
It is.
Yeah.
So, Jesse, what's your game structure look like, other than bottles of water? wait, actually, because that
No,
is
my
that your final answer.
my game structure is, I like the idea that was like A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess,
You
to where
want,
like
your
you
regular dungeon progression.
no, like you get 3 things, but you can get those 3 things in any order that you want. But you have to get those 3 things, and then
Well, that's more Link Between Worlds structure now.
but then a big plot twist happens. Like
Right.
Yeah,
After-
exactly.
after you get
That's the
hello.
Hi.
hello.
Oh, I didn't know if
disappeared
I didn't know if
forever.
you cut out. But yeah, like the way that I like it
Mm-hmm.
is you have the 3 things that you get. So like you beat the 3 dungeons, and then like in A Link
Yeah.
to the Past, the plot twist or whatever is like you get sent to the Dark World. Ocarina of Time, the plot twist is like you get sent to the future and Hyrule Castle's destroyed, the lake's dried up, the Zora's domain's frozen, all of
Right.
that nonsense is
Yeah.
going on. Twilight Princess, you're talking to Lanayru, I think, after the first 3 dungeons, and then like you collect the things that you need to collect, but then Zant just shows up and like takes them from you or something like that. So I like
Yeah.
that, to where like maybe not after 3 dungeons, because then you
Right.
would see it coming, but I would like at some point like
Yeah.
you do something and then there's a plot twist to where it's like
Do you
Yeah.
think the Castle Rising would be the plot twist in this game,
Oh.
or would it have, or would it
Yeah,
happen? In the
maybe. Like
beginning?
you do, your.
I think that would be something at the beginning.
And then, I don't know, it could be cool though. Like think about it, you do certain objectives, you do those. Plot twist happens. A bunch of like the castle rises, and a bunch of other things rise out of the ground too. You know.
No, so I think it does do that, but I think it's like the castle rises somewhere near the beginning of the game, and then Link and Zelda find like
Zoldor.
they start thinking, okay, like we already knew that there was a bunch of Chica shrines that existed below the ground, and now they have this giant cavern that's underground from the castle rising up. So then they have to go and re-explore Hyrule to find the other areas that lead underground.
Cool. That's
Okay.
very cool.
So, like at the end of Breath of the Wild, they say like, "Oh, Vah-Ruta is acting weird. Let's go check on it." So then you go check on it, and you discover like under that lake that Vah-Ruta's in, maybe that like when you go explore, for some reason, maybe they give you a tunic that like lets you finally
Scuba
have
tunic.
underwater exploration. And then
Right.
when you swim down, you discover, like instead of like the water temple, I don't know why I'm doing quotes. Instead of the water temple being in Lake Hylia, the water temple is underneath the lake for, like where
Vah-Ruta.
Vah-Ruta is.
I feel like I would rather it in Lake Hylia though, because
And then,
Breath of the Wild Lake Hylia is not super eventful.
yeah. But then
Other than
like,
going across the bridge, but
we already have, like in the Gerudo Desert, like maybe however much time has passed now that there's not a giant mechanical camel that's like trying to kill everyone with electricity, they had time to go and excavate all of the sand from the spirit
Ooh.
temple, or not the spirit temple, but the arbiter's grounds.
right.
So now instead of being covered up in sand, it's like now there's the giant temple there that's been excavated correctly. And then maybe like a giant avalanche happens on one of the snowy mountains, like whichever one you want to pick. and that uncovers an underground cavern to go to like the ice temple or whatever they want to call it.
Right.
So I think it's going to be like, that's what I actually think is going to happen, that the castle rising up reveals an underground cavern under the castle. But then whenever they go check on 𝐓𝐽, presumably, from what Breath of the Wild, the way it leads off, that like it doesn't make you think that they're going to check on 𝐓𝐽 because they literally tell you that's what they're going to do. So whenever they go and check on it, they discover a second underground cavern, and then that makes them think, oh, well, where are the rest of them?
Right.
So...
Yeah.
And then the game's exploring everywhere trying to find all of the other caverns.
Yeah.
But I'm rambling, I'm sorry. You guys talk.
It's okay. I mean, I agree with you. I think that's a very cool structure. I would go for something similar. Yeah.
Cool.
Alright. Do you have another question, Daniel? We can do 2 more questions.
2 more. Okay. So
I'm trying to look up stuff about the medallions because they have to, like, there has to be a point. Like, there's a reason they're in the game, right? Like, they can't just be completely useless.
And yes.
Maybe, okay, so my headcanon, until I can find something different. It is, okay, so, like, you can talk to 𝐓𝐼𝐢 when you play the ocarina. So, them giving you the medallion is their way of being like, oh, if you have this medallion, we can talk to each other.
Right.
Kind of like Tetra gives you the pendant in Wind Waker, and she talks to you through the pendant.
Counterpoint. What if instead of Farore's Wind being its own item, that's what you could use the Force Medallion for? Because it has the wind symbol on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
And if the Forest Temple is like the first temple that you go to, then that would make sense that you would get it from the first temple. Because if you get something that helps you teleport out of a dungeon at the very end of the game, there's no point to it. But if it's the first temple that you go to, then there is a point. And then you also get the fire arrows around the same time that you would... Because, like, you beat the fire temple and then you go to the lake. And so, like, that's about the same time.
Yeah.
But the ice arrow, I don't know. That's at the end of the game. I don't know. But that's interesting, though. I like it.
Yeah, but the ice arrows are, like, kind of non... Like, they're optional, right? Like, you...
Yeah.
Is someone in your house?
No, it's just a ghost.
Oh, okay. That's normal. Okay, well, here's a different question here. That's on our mailbag.
No. What?
Okay, hey, whoa,
you have me thinking.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. I'm reading the thing about the medallions on the Zelda website. So it's got me... What would the Shadow Medallion do, then? So presumably, if the red medallion was like Din's fire or the fire arrow, the ice medallion or the water medallion was the ice arrow, light medallion, light arrow.
Sure.
Forest medallion is Farore's wind or whatever. Maybe the spirit medallion was the one that like shields you, protects. What's it called?
Yeah,
Nehru's love.
Yeah.
So what would the shadow thing be?
I don't know. Shadow medallion.
The shadow arrows, maybe. Maybe arrows that just like vaporizes enemies in the same way that light arrows does in Wind Waker, like traps them in shadow go or something.
That would be cool.
That would be spicy.
There's nothing in the game that like hides you, like the stone mask and Majora's Mask, like because like maybe like it's the opposite of what the Lens of Truth would do, to where like the Lens of Truth lets you see things that are invisible. Maybe this would let
Yeah.
you be invisible.
Or maybe that was like a prototype before they made the Lens of Truth. They had those shadow medallion. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that wouldn't make sense because you'd need it for the dungeon.
Yeah.
not to get
Yeah,
to the end of
that's
the
true.
dungeon. So,
People in the comments, give us your idea of what the medallions could do. And you continue, Daniel. Give us the question.
the question, right, comes from ZeldaCraft512 on Discord, I believe. Question for the podcast. What are your thoughts on the Switch Lite? I personally think it's cool, but I'm also afraid the screen may be a little too small to be comfortable. So, to start off, for me, I prefer using a Switch's Pro Controller because I find the Joy-Cons just a little too small. I'll use them fine, but I would rather use Pro Controller just because of its size. So to make that even smaller, I think I think it's too small. But I really like the colors, especially the teal color, the turquoise blue. But I think it's a very good option, especially if you've got like kids or something, and it's a less expensive
Yeah.
for them. So
And if you don't have not that much money,
Yeah.
generally.
good, less expensive alternative. But I almost always play on the Switch if I can. If I have the option to play it docked, I will always play it. It's not an option. I
Yeah,
will play
yes,
it
same
docked.
here, same here.
So that's a big feature that's missing, and I really like the take it off and put it on, and so that's gonna be missing. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you remember all of the people that say Nintendo would never release a Switch Mini because it would defeat the purpose?
Yeah. The Nintendo would never is almost always like it. But no, Nintendo will do whatever they want. They are a wild card.
Yeah. So I think it would be
Nintendo will
nice.
duct tape two GameCubes together and paint it white, and then give you a TV remote and tell you this is your video game now, and you and your grandma are both gonna love it. Now
No,
go
did you see
bowling.
the Hard for Games had like a prototype Wii controller?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Or no,
They had,
no,
like, a
the
really long...
no, it was the Wii U. The prototype Wii U gamepad had
Oh.
two Nintendo Switch controllers on the side of, like, just imagine a screen like your phone,
Right,
and then
two
two
Wii remotes.
Wii remotes on the side instead of Joy-Cons, and that's what the prototype Wii U gamepad was. It was literally Wii controllers and then a screen in the middle.
I'm glad that wasn't the final result.
Could you imagine sliding on something as like huge as the Wii controllers onto like?
So they Hard Games also did have a prototype Wii remote in a recent video.
Yeah.
which
But it was
plugged
for a
into
GameCube.
A GameCube, yeah,
Yeah.
which is so super.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think it would be good for my daughter because she wants to play sometimes, but she never plays it on TV. She likes
Yeah.
holding it. So that's the only situation that I could see that would be good because I prefer playing on the TV.
Mhm.
I don't really play it in handheld mode that much, and it's nice that it's cheaper. I've seen some people saying like there's no reason for Nintendo to not allow it to play on a TV,
Mhm.
but when you
Yeah.
dock it to play it on a TV, it uses more power, which means it puts out more heat. So my theory is that the Switch Mini, like it has the CPU and GPU and everything that would allow it to play on the TV, but because it's a cheaper model, they have
Yeah.
like a cheaper fan and a cheaper heat sink inside of it to keep costs low. So it doesn't have the ability to cool off what would be necessary to play on the TV. But since you're
But
only
doesn't
playing
the
in
dock
handheld
already-
mode, No, the dock doesn't
the
have
dock an
fans.
additional fan in it?
No. The dock is just the dock.
Okay, I don't know then. But,
But that is a good idea if they did release like a Switch Lite dock that had fans built in to it. Maybe that could work. I don't know.
yeah, just as like an optional one,
Yeah.
maybe? I don't know.
But it is
Mm.
that is why I think that they don't allow it to plug in, because it would overheat, because they didn't put in like a fan powerful enough, where they didn't put in like a heat sink good enough to cool off the heat that it would put out if it was like plugged into a TV. Like it's only equipped to handle the heat that it puts off in handheld mode, which is not that much heat. So yeah, that's my idea of why it doesn't do that. But yeah,
You're probably right.
what about you, Chica? What are your thoughts on the Switch Lite, Switch Mini, whatever it's called?
I mean, other than it looking sleek as hell, that's what I think. I just think it's just looks very like I don't have the money, but I still want to get it because it looks so neat. And I actually imagine it would look like. I wonder how the game would look like, because the screen is slightly smaller than Switch in handheld. If the games gonna look like cuter because everything's a bit smaller. Like I imagine maybe that's why they're releasing it at the same time as Link's Awakening, because I think Link's Awakening is gonna look really, really cool on Switch Lite.
Yeah.
And I just think this makes a lot of sense in a way. They were ever since the Switch was released, I think they were inevitably gonna release a handheld only version for maybe for kids and for people who only play it portable. I'm not that into like tech and stuff, so I'm more like, as a consumer, I think it's a very cool product, you know.
I think it's really cool, all of the different colors that they have for it.
Yeah, the colors are very. They are.
Which begs the question, why though? Like, we have different colored Joy-Cons, but why is there are no different colored actual consoles at this point yet? Like, I don't know. They've always done that before, but
my theory.
What's your theory?
Oh, I was gonna let you finish.
Oh, just
first.
like, think about how many different themed 3DSs there are, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but we just only get like Joy-Con docks basically.
Yeah.
But the actual console is always the same for the Switch, for the not Lite
Yeah.
Switch.
So my idea is that, you know how when a new Nintendo console releases, most of the time there's like shortages everywhere. Like whenever the Wii released, or even the Wii U, whenever it first released, there were like shortages. But I guess that's every new Nintendo console. My guess is what they did is they only made the different colored Joy-Cons and the one model of the actual Switch. That way, instead of like worrying about processing and manufacturing different variations of the actual Switch console, they only focused on having one to make sure that they had enough out there in the public. Maybe that's the only thing I could think of, but then it's been like 2 years since it's released, so it doesn't explain why they haven't had one since. But maybe
I like my Joy-Cons, so like, you know.
yeah,
but
maybe they plan on doing it with the Switch Pro, like if they release like a better Nintendo Switch, which even the new version of the Switch they have out now, that like the only real difference is the battery life. There's been a bunch of people that I've seen go to GameStop and trade in their old Nintendo Switch and then pay like $75 to get the new Nintendo Switch. So they're basically paying the $75 for a better battery life. But since people are doing that to where like there's not really a reason to upgrade unless you just want the battery. But whenever they release a Switch Pro, if they do have it in different colors, then all of the people like you who would probably buy a second Switch if you could choose which color it is, maybe that's how they will get people to buy a Switch Pro. Is like, if the only way you can get a purple or blue or red Nintendo Switch is if you buy the Pro version. So maybe it's something like that. Like they're not releasing one because they're keeping it as a way for you to buy the upgrade when it releases.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, Daniel, pick
but
our...
Nintendo would never do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, our final... You want me to pick the final
Yeah,
one?
pick the final question.
Okay, you can pick. Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Like you normally try and like spread it and not like pick on the same frequently, but I actually just really like this question, which is also from ZeldaCraft 512. He asks another question: what is the dumbest / most unlikely prediction for Breath of the Wild 2 that you've heard? So like someone's wild prediction that you've heard that you just feel like the most unlikely thing to happen. I'm just gonna say it, guys. Good guy Ganondorf is the most unlikely prediction. He's why do people think when they see evil-looking zombie Ganondorf corpse come to life and look at you with burning, hateful eyes and literal malice spilling out of his corpse, and they're like, Ganondorf's a good guy in this game? Like, why? So that's what I think. But what do you guys think? What you got? Unlikely predictions.
So there's the theory that on the last video or the top 5 theory discussion thing where like people submit their theories. One that I put on the list of the last video was someone talking about how like they were using Ganondorf's corpse as like a battery for something. And I thought it was like really, like I read it, I thought it was dumb. And I was like, who in the world, like who would even think of that? Like I've never even heard that before. That's so silly. And then there was a bunch of people who commented like, oh, 𝐳𝐿Tic and Nintendo Black Crisis worked on a video about that. And I'm like, oh, well now I feel horrible. Like,
it's a good video. I don't think that's the case, but like I don't think their theory is right, but I think it is a neat theory. And I think that of course they both are very good, competent.
I just think the idea of using the corpse as a battery is odd.
It is definitely odd, but especially because the thing that I find odd about it is that they already have a power source, which is the blue flame.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just putting that out there, but I think they did address that a bit, the blue flame thing. I don't know. Chica, what's yours?
It's people thinking it's gonna release.
It's gonna what?
No, release in 2020. No, I'm sort of kidding. I hope it's gonna be released in 2020, but I also think, especially if it's going to be multiplayer, I think this is a game that has like delay written in its forehead. I think I try to be optimistic, but I think this is gonna be an early 2021 title. I hope I am.
Well, if
wrong.
you.
But as far as.
Sorry.
If you.
No, I was gonna quickly say, like after Skyward Sword released, Aonuma wanted
Yeah.
Zelda Wii U or Breath of the Wild. I keep doing the quotes. I don't know why. He wanted Breath of the Wild to have a 3-year development cycle. So like after Skyward Sword released, they would work on the next Zelda game for 3 years and release it.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, they planned on it releasing in 3 years, but it took like 6 years or 7.
It's possible they currently have a 2020 release lined up, and then they're
Yeah.
going to delay it.
But I think Chica's right though, because it's like they can plan on it releasing soon, but then look how many times the original was delayed.
Yeah.
But continue, Chica. Sorry.
As far as weird theories, a lot of people say there are many weird theories that you kind of want to be true. I don't know if I want this to be true though, but I heard a lot of people say Zelda in space, that the castle is gonna take off and it's gonna
In
go into
space?
space. You can like
We're going to space!
fast
Oh
travel
wow.
to that is castle's gonna be like a rocket. I see
I haven't heard this. Oh my gosh. That is so
yeah,
funny.
selling space.
Well, they did have the alien concept artwork, and like even the video where it showed Link
Legend
running
of
from the
Zelda
explosions.
Invasion,
And then
yeah.
Majora's Mask had the aliens that like stole the cows. So
Yeah, but Link didn't go up.
They definitely have
No.
space.
but he could have.
I guess. But wow. That's great.
That-
Oh my gosh.
Then I don't know what they will find in space. Maybe like different planets you can go to. Maybe there's like a water planet you have to drown Ganondorf in so he can get hydrated. I don't know.
Well, Mario did go to space.
Yeah, I mean maybe it's gonna be like Mario Galaxy influenced in Breath of the
my
Wild too.
gosh.
You never know.
Yeah, RPG says bam to the moon.
Yes, perfect.
Dude, you
So-
gotta
for Mario.
you have to find
Good enough
all
for Link.
300 Koroks hiding on the moon.
Oh my god, no. Oh. You're just picking up random moon rocks.
Mm.
Oh my.
I want to read someone's in-depth explanation of going
Really?
to space, just to see how crazy it gets.
Just see like how it's gonna be like people like conspiracy people, you know, when they say the moon landing is fake and that's how they're justifying it.
No, but it's
gonna be the same thing.
it's just like it is weird, like a weird idea. But honestly, like I think Nintendo could do anything with Breath of the Wild too. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
they obviously someone at Nintendo thought it was a good idea to let someone like spend at least a month working on an alien invasion for Breath of the Wild 1. So
Yeah,
like
you never know.
who
They
knows?
can always surprise us. They can
Yeah.
always surprise us.
All right.
But
so-
you wanted to read someone's explanation, or
yeah, just to see like how crazy it gets.
Whew. Time to start searching on the internet.
Yeah. But I guess that brings us to the end of the podcast, right?
I think
yeah,
so.
actually, I have to go to work soon.
All right.
my
It's
work-
early in the morning
my
for
work-
you.
Yeah, it's been about
Yeah.
2.5 hours. I wasn't planning on it going that long, but it was great talking to you guys, getting caught up in conversation. But before you go, 𝐓𝐿𝐴𝐽𝐿, if you have a Twitter or something that you would like to promote and have people follow you.
I mostly want to promote my YouTube, where you can find my fancy things. My YouTube is 𝐓𝐿𝐴𝐽𝐿𝐴𝐽, but Chica _ Chica 2_, then which YouTube. That's like the only thing I would like to promote.
All right. Well, whenever when we upload the edited version of the video, on all of the different segments, we'll have your YouTube channel, like at the top of the description and everything for people to check out your stuff. But Daniel,
Thank you.
Capt.
That's
Bergerson,
very cool.
and 𝐿𝐸𝐻𝐻, thank you both for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, it's been amazing. I've
Thank
had
you.
very much fun talking to all of you.
We've been meaning to have you on for so long, but we were finally able to do it. So thank you for not, I don't know, getting mad about all of the rescheduling.
No, it's fine.
yeah.
It's fine.
People in the chat saying, great podcast. Thanks, guys. It was fun. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night, everybody.
Yeah.